How do trees go in line? They log in.
Oh!
In my defense, how many jokes connect physical ecology and the information environment? Now, you can show me the door for that, or you can stay and learn about physical ecology and how that can inspire a new field fit for studying the information environment. I'm hoping, despite my poor taste in jokes, you choose the latter. Welcome to the Information Animal Podcast. I'm your host, Alicia Wanless. If this is your first time joining us, this podcast draws on ideas from my book of the same name. In the video version, I like to undermine the big claims made by AI firms by using the silly outputs their tools generate, no matter how detailed my prompts are. If you're listening, you'll sometimes hear the noises it often fabricates without asking. Today, we're exploring the exciting world of ecological research and how understanding the physical world can help unlock the mysteries of the information environment. Now, if there are proper ecologists tuning in, I beg your forgiveness at the top. I majored in Russian and war studies. Physical ecology is not my expertise, and what follows is a gross simplification. With that public service announcement aside, back to our scheduled programming. Physical ecology is the scientific study of the relationships between living organisms and their surroundings. But why turn to ecology at all? The short and snarky answer is that we are already borrowing from physical ecology when we use terms like information environment and ecosystem. Why not lean in further and take more than metaphors? The more serious answer is that there's a lot to be learned from physical ecology, particularly in how the field structures research. Physical ecology can teach us how to speak the same language. Making sense of big, complex systems means researchers from many disciplines need to share the same concepts and understanding. Having spent more than a decade working on information issues, I can tell you, there is very little consistency in how terms like information environment and ecosystems are used. And this pains me greatly. For example, information environment and ecosystem are often used interchangeably, and depending on who uses which term, they often mean something slightly different. A lot of people use information ecosystem to mean the internet or social media. Some might mean news media, and elsewhere it's a stand-in for an organization like a business. But here, we can learn from physical ecology. Physical ecology follows an hierarchical framework that scales individual organisms all the way up to the environment, helping researchers manage complexity and sing from the same song sheet, as it were. For example, ecologists distinguish between the wider environment and ecosystems. The environment is the external biotic and abiotic conditions that shape an organism's life, whereas an ecosystem is an integrated system of organisms and their physical surroundings linked by flows of energy and materials. Now, David Scales, Claire Wardle, and I have a forthcoming paper on how this can be adapted, which warrants its own episode. But at a top level, a similar approach can help researchers studying the information environment clarify terms. Drawing on physical ecology, we suggest that the global information environment, singular, not plural, comprises the external conditions that enable information to exist, such as economy, governance, electricity, and transportation. Whereas information ecosystems are integrated systems forming from relationships between humans, tools, outputs, and the surrounding environment. Now, why does this matter? You might be asking, if you're still awake. It's an understatement to say that the modern information environment is super complex. If we ever hope to make sense of it, the least researchers need to do is ensure that we're talking about the same things. But physical ecology can also teach us how to organize research. Right now, research on the information environment is all over the place. That shouldn't be surprising. Without shared definitions, how can the dots get connected? Lacking a way to connect disparate types of research hinders sense-making of complex information ecosystems. One way physical ecology has overcome similar challenges is to organize research between the structure of ecosystems and the functions within them. In terms of structure, components are broken into non-living and living ones. The non-living or abiotic components include things like climate factors, the rain, sunlight, and wind, and edaphic factors like oil, pH levels, and minerals. The availability of abiotic factors will shape how an ecosystem develops. The living or biotic components include different types of organisms categorized by the functions they play in an ecosystem. For example, producers or autotrophs convert energy and abiotic factors into their own food. These are things like plants. Other types include consumers, like herbivores who eat those plants, and carnivores who eat those animals, all the way up to decomposers who break all those other organisms down in the end. Together, these biotic components form a web of life, which is a function of ecosystems. And to that end, ecology also studies those functions, such as food chains, energy flows, nutrient cycling, pollination, and pest control, to name a few. This approach provides a framework to help researchers understand where their work fits in and connect dots between disciplines. Information ecology can borrow this organizational model, breaking research into structure and function too. As in physical ecology, structural factors can be broken into impact conditions and informational factors. Much like climate in the physical world, these impact conditions shape how information ecosystems develop and include things like economy and geography and even roads. Whereas informational factors are elements that comprise information ecosystems, such as people, tools, and outputs. Just like in physical ecology, those factors can be subcategorized. For example, people might be grouped by the roles they play within information webs. Some might be producers, others consumers, and some of us are both. Obviously, there are many functions in information ecosystems, many of which are already being studied. To name a couple, there are processes like education or information flows that go between people forming webs. Sometimes people are researching the tools that are used in that process or the outputs that are created. There are also dependencies between these factors and conditions that are perhaps less well understood. In organizing research accordingly, we can start to see what work has been done, identify and fill gaps, and eventually develop a comprehensive understanding of information ecosystems, which in turn can help us problem solve better. Physical ecology can teach us how to find consensus on complex problems. Physical ecology has helped scientists prove causation, understand resilience, and find solutions to problems in complex ecosystems. All things many inside democracies today think we desperately need. Now let me give you a couple of examples where understanding complexity has helped ecologists find answers. Story time. Let's go back to the 1950s. Peregrine falcon eggs are so thin that only 1 in 5 hatches. Why, people ask? What changed? The obvious answer is pesticides, specifically DDT, which is widely used, for example, to control the spruce budward population in the forestry sector. There is evidence to support this hypothesis. Looking at historic eggs collected over decades by zoologists, the thinning starts about the same time DDT is introduced. This provides a baseline for how the eggs used to be, as well as a turning point for the change. To test the hypothesis, scientists feed DDT to falcons in lab experiments, but the experiments fail to reproduce the egg thinning. This setback fuels proponents of DDT, claiming that their product is safe. That is, until bird-loving toxicologist David Beaumont-Peakill comes along. Peakill understands something others might not, because he knows chemicals and he knows birds. He knows that falcons are part of a food chain, and they don't ingest DDT, but consume a byproduct of it in their prey. Knowing this, Peakill feeds falcons the byproduct DDE, and sure enough, he reproduces the egg-thinning falcons experience in the wild. Peakill's experiment succeeds where others failed because he understood how ecosystems work and drew on several disciplines to achieve results. Understanding ecosystems can help prove causation, but it can also help find solutions. Let's look at another example. As you just heard, pesticides can be a blunt instrument with unintended negative consequences. Because of those knock-on effects, not to mention regulations, many farmers are turning to alternative solutions. For example, cotton growers are adopting integrated pest management to control aphids, a tiny insect that eats their crops. This approach uses multiple interventions based on how ecosystems function, including disrupting aphid mating with pheromone traps, supporting natural aphid predators like beetles and spiders, and planting pest-resistant cotton varieties. Effectively, it's about fostering better conditions that enable cotton plants to thrive without hurting the wider ecosystem. It takes more effort, but the approach is working. It's led to a 10 to 15% increase in cotton yields and 20 to 30% savings in pest controls, among other benefits. Fostering resilience requires understanding the system and pursuing multiple interventions that work in coordination to achieve an aim. Yet another lesson physical ecology can teach those aiming to improve information ecosystems. Now, how do these lessons help with social problems? The first way is that in developing an understanding of how information ecosystems work, it should become easier to prove causation. The current state of research on the information environment opens the door to doubt. That's a situation those degrading ecosystems can readily exploit, just like polluters did. Just as scientists struggled to prove causation with DDT, researchers trying to demonstrate how new technologies cause harm face challenges with replicability, both of the real-world problem in experiments and of their research. For example, some studies claim that social media causes polarization, while others refute this claim. Even on topics that seem like foregone conclusions, such as the idea that mobile phones and social media are harmful to kids, consensus is hard to reach. Not because there's a lack of belief that the technologies are bad, but because the bulk of research still points only to correlation and not causation. If concerned researchers want to prove causation, they need the level of insight into information ecosystems that people had in the physical world. Information ecology can help with that. Physical ecology has spent decades measuring various aspects of ecosystems to develop an understanding of how different types of ecosystems function and change. So much money is being spent, not just in the development of so-called artificial intelligence, but also in fretting about how it will change information ecosystems. Yet, it's really hard to know what those changes are exactly without a baseline understanding of the information ecosystem before the technology was introduced. Samantha Lai, Derek Ruths, Ben Nimmo, and I wrote a paper on this for anyone who wants to dive deeper into the challenges with measuring change. Yet, with so much talk about resilience and democracy, it should be absolutely imperative to identify what that means across different types of information ecosystems. After all, this is the space where people become informed voters, if at all. Resilience implies that a system bounces back after a stress, which again requires an understanding of its prior state. Information ecology can provide those baselines by conducting repeated measurements of the same conditions and factors over time, and then building an understanding of how they interrelate, not just to assess change, but also to identify what fosters resilience. This, in turn, offers a roadmap for solutions. I know, policymakers are pressed to do something now, and major geopolitical shifts are only increasing that urgency. But same inflection point is why we should be cautious about rushing to interventions, particularly those that focus on ideas people hold. Instead, we need to take the equivalent of integrated pest management approaches to problems like disinformation. That is, identifying what factors and conditions can be fostered in different types of information ecosystems to make it harder for disinformation to take hold at all. Not to be a broken record, and it turns out Gemini has no idea what that idiom means, but information ecology should provide those answers. What is information ecology? Information ecology, then, is a field that aims to structure research from various disciplines to better understand the relationships between humans and the information environment. As such, information ecology is a collection of diverse theories and models explaining different phenomena across various scales of organization within the wider information environment. Information ecology doesn't replace other fields, but instead systematizes research across various aspects of information ecosystems to uncover how they work, while ultimately building towards an understanding of the global information environment. Now, how do you fit in? Not everyone is going to walk away from this and decide to study information ecosystems. But I hope some of you will have at least a better understanding of how your work might fit into that bigger idea. One way we start down this path is to begin thinking about how our own work fits into information ecology. It might be a function or process like communications or on a tool like AI, but putting it into context can help us get to a wider field fit for understanding the information environment. This isn't about creating a field from scratch, but bridging many existing methods and disciplines together to make sense of the information environment such that it informs policy and helps foster the right conditions to support systems like democracy. You can learn more about information ecology as well as information ecosystems and competition within them in my book, The Information Animal, Humans, Technology, and the Competition for Reality. Thank you for listening to the Information Animal podcast. More episodes are coming, so be sure to follow on Substack, YouTube, or Apple Podcasts. I didn't even get to use my cane toads. Damn it.